Okay, the recording has started. And this is the June 4th, 2019 Rook Community Meeting. And so we will start this meeting here with a quick checkup on our recent milestones. 1.0 is out like a month ago, and we'll see if we have any patchwork to do for it, any pending patches. And then we'll take a look at the current milestone, which is 1.1. All right, so here is the project board for 1.0 patch releases. So I know a number of these are in investigation. Travis, do you want to give us an update on the state of these issues?
Yeah, definitely. I was just going through this board this morning, added a few that I think should be backported that weren't in the list yet. But basically, we do have several of these pull requests that are in review and getting close to done. I think would be good to get them in. So really not everything in the review column I think needs to be backported. I think the first one the doc resource limit, a simple thing. The second one, let's see, admission webhooks.
Yeah, this looks like it was something that didn't make 1.0 and doesn't need to be tracked here.
Yeah, is Yanis on the call? I didn't.
I do not see Giannis in the attendee list right now.
Right. So yeah, probably we can remove that one from 1.0.
Yeah, I'll just throw it into 1.1 so it doesn't get lost though for right now.
Yep.
Okay, there we go.
And then the second one there in the list assigned to Blaine, I'm not sure that one will make it either since Blaine's traveling this week. But the rest of them, I believe I'd expect to get in the next couple of days, hopefully. And in my mind, the goal would be end of this week to get a 1.0.2 release out with some of these fixes. And then with the other ones in investigation, I'm sure we'll need a 1.0.3 at some point after that.
So these ones here, in the to-do column, we believe that those are worthy of being backported or put into a patch release, but they don't have the resources or the progress right now to be included in the next train.
Right. 2945, that first one on the list may not, or may just wait for 1.1 actually. I'll think about that one. The high CPU usage, I think we have to understand that one, and it's not clear yet. Well, is it a Ceph issue or is it a Rook configuration issue?
And is that one, to my understanding, that one's fairly isolated as well. It's not like broadly being observed or lots of people reporting it, right?
Right. It does seem like only several people are hitting it. So it's just not clear why only they're hitting it, or we're not seeing a broader issue. Right, and so maybe then it would be pushed out after we understand it.
Sure, yeah, definitely. I definitely support. It looks like something that at least warrants investigation to understand it and the scope and impact.
Mm-hmm. That third one on the list needs understanding. Actually, that one Seb commented on it. It needs a Ceph fix. There was a core dump and or a seg fault. So that will be a Nautilus fix. We'll just hold it here, I guess, to track in the meantime.
Do we have a good process in place for a patch release getting an updated version of Ceph specifically, or is that something that we don't really need to do anything on our side to pick up the new build?
And yeah, we don't have to do anything. I think when we do a patch release, making sure we have the latest
cluster.yaml and stuff
in cluster.yaml. Yeah, I think that's the goal, but it doesn't.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That. And then the last one on the list there, we need to understand still. Don't have more details.
Got it. Sounds good. Is there any other comments that anybody wants to add to any of the issues that are on this 1.0 patch release board?
Yeah. Oh, and I glossed over the one that's in progress. I was just talking to Santosh. He's the one working on it. He's expecting a PR by tomorrow, so it should fit in this patch release this week.
Sounds good. All right. So in 1.1, this is the project board for that. Do you feel that from the roadmap, at least, that the applicable items have been added to the 1.1 project, or we have some more work to go there? I have a feeling we have some more work to capture everything in this milestone.
Yeah, from my perspective, I haven't done a scrub of what's in the roadmap and what's coming next, especially not in this board. I
Yeah,
did
I'd say
add
we've
a
been mostly focused on cleanup and patches from 1.0 is what it sounds like a lot of the resources are going to.
right. Work is starting on 1.1 for sure.
Yeah.
It's in progress. It's just tracking on the board we haven't done due diligence there. And we need to update the roadmap for 1.1. I added that later in the agenda, but just as a general thing, I'd like to plan on updating that in the next couple of days.
Okay. All right, so let's then move ahead. Since the main focus right now is on patches for 1.0, some development work has started on 1.1, but we need to pay more, spend some time focusing on getting the items and issues updated for the roadmap that we can discuss a little bit later here. Seems like we can go ahead and move on to the community topic section.
Sounds good to me.
Right. So the first item we had is that the last community meeting we skipped because that was right in the middle of KubeCon Barcelona. We got a chance to meet a lot of folks there in Barcelona at both the talks and the Rook booth that we had, which was an awesome experience. It's always great and really fun to meet users and contributors in the Rook community. So thanks to everybody who stopped by the booth and chatted with us, and the talks as well. All the Rook talks were very popular. The intro, the deep dive, the global scale data one, all those talks were really popular. So that was super exciting to see all the excitement around Rook in Barcelona. Travis, did you add this need more swag, or did?
Yes, I did. I had nothing to give away at the booth.
Yeah, the stickers and t-shirts that we had went incredibly quickly. People were very excited about the new Rook artwork and logos and stuff that was done by Chris. And the t-shirts were for commemorating version 1.0 were super exciting as well. I think that we probably should have reserved or saved some more swag for the main KubeCon event versus Cephalacon. We set up shop there with the booth at Cephalacon first, and things were going pretty hot there, so we had to shut that down and save what was left for the main KubeCon event, which only lasted like an hour or so. It was gone really quickly. So yeah, that is a lesson learned. Yeah. Does you think Red Hat will bring some more Rook swag next time too?
Yeah, definitely. We'd like to participate in that and help bring a pile. There's budget for that, and Mike Perez, our community manager, on the Ceph side, yeah, he definitely wants to help out there.
Awesome. Yeah, that's great. The booth looked good. The discussions there, the excitement and buzz around it was awesome. I think everything was really, really, really good at KubeCon. Does anybody have any big takeaways or observations that they want to share with the group here besides the general observation that things were awesome?
One more comment about the swag real quick is that I think having general Rook swag, of course, we want that. Also, having storage provider swag is perfectly appropriate, I think, for the for the Rook booth.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I mean, we had some Ceph pins and things, but other, we just need other storage providers. The more storage providers we have representing that, the better in the future. So just for those driving other storage providers, fully welcome and invited to have that that collection of swag there.
Absolutely. Yep. I haven't seen any attendees that say less swag.
Right.
And I still laugh to this day about our early Rook contributor, Steve Leon, alias Cuckhang, who would literally bring a second suitcase to each KubeCon that was empty when he went there so that he could bring back that second suitcase full of swag. That's the most dedicated swag man I've ever seen in my entire life.
Yep.
Very
awesome.
silly. All right. Travis, you have an item here for Slack channels.
Or was there anything else for retrospective? I didn't know.
Oh, yeah. Anybody else?
All right. We'll just talk to each other.
Okay, we can move on, Travis.
Mm-hmm. All right. Yeah. The next one then is just kind of a general simple question. In Slack today, most people use the general channel for all sorts of questions. I think we're getting to a point where it'd be best to split that into new channels for each storage provider, just so people can direct their questions to a place where the answers might be filtered more easily for the right people to answer. So unless there's any other suggestion, I'll go ahead and create one for each of the storage providers. Probably an EdgeFS dev channel makes sense at this point. We can create other dev channels as needed or as the other storage providers pick up pace. But in general, any thoughts around that or sound okay?
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense because, the general channel, at least in terms of the intent for that being a general Rook discussion, and a place for that makes a lot of sense to have storage provider specific stuff focused on their own channels where people can find it easily and, the experts in those particular areas will be able to help most easily there. That makes a lot of sense to me.
And I'm sure we'll still get lots of questions in the general channel because that's the default everybody joins, and that's fine. Yeah,
and you can have like a pinned item or a sticky or whatever they're called in Slack to direct people towards the specific channels too. That could be one thing.
True.
On this topic here of Slack, the focal bot, we set it up like a couple months ago. And then, it requires, we have a whole bunch of question and answers pairs that the focal bot knows about to be able to automatically answer people's questions that need to be approved or sort of walked through with a human to make sure that they make sense and that they are appropriate or quality answers. I haven't looked at that in a little bit. I started taking a pass at that at the beginning, and there's like a few hundred of them, so it was kind of slow moving. Has anybody else taken a look at that recently to start kind of approving and building up the knowledge base that the focal bot has?
Well, I know I see the bot asking for approval for things after answering things in Slack. I haven't looked at
organically growing it?
Yeah, it's just
cool.
The bot asks for approval to be added or whatever.
Have you found that any of those, any quantity of those are like a high quality enough to approve them? Is it identifying strong answers, or is it, kind of, oh yeah, here's something that looks like a question and answer. Can you approve this, human?
Yeah, well, I've approved a lot of them.
Good.
At the same time, it's felt like it'd be hard probably in the future for the bot to answer somebody else's question based on those, maybe. But everybody comes with such different questions in general that it's a challenge, I'd say, for the bot to be super helpful.
The
I don't
little
know.
bot is working as hard as he can, Travis.
It is. It is. have others had more experience or looked into that more? Or Alex, is Alex on the call?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, only that, as you said, that it's asking in the chat from time to time, like, hey, but isn't this answer in question? Does this fit? So, yeah, well, it's. But at least I haven't really seen it. I don't know. Well, maybe we really need to put in more questions or try to get more answers in it.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know, like, I'm not sure. I think I saw one user one time writing, oh, yeah, thanks, Focal, for the answer, basically. But
that's an interesting chart.
So we have analytics for it. I just logged into it to take a look at it. It looks like right now that the percentage quality of questions is on it's the minority occurrence that the answer is helpful.
Mm-hmm.
So most of them are saying that the answer is not helpful right now, which does continue to train him. But that's interesting, though, and I think that definitely is a testament to all the backlog of unapproved answers we have. Oh, I don't know where it just went, but I think we still have 100 different. We only have 28 approved answers, and we have a few hundred of potential answers that the focal bot can know about. So I think that this is largely the quality of the bot could definitely increase if we took the time to approve the answers and get that get that guy all taught and understanding the needs of the Rook community. So that might be a good action item to follow up on.
Yeah, like the comment in chat there, it takes a long time to get the context.
Yep.
Exactly.
Okay, so that was everything for Slack. We can go ahead and move on to the Apache Hadoop Ozone as a storage provider. Who is on the call that wants to go ahead and speak to this and just kind of give everybody a bit of background information to understand, what the use case is here and how this might fit in well with Rook?
Hi, there are two of us from the Apache team, Ozone team here, me and Marthon. So very briefly, Ozone is an evolution of HDFS. It is basically evolved from HDFS, and it is optimized for big data workload. And we believe that there is a lot of big data workloads which are moving over to Kubernetes. And it is very useful for them to have a file system that is capable of handling, big data workloads. So Ozone fits in perfectly there. And was on plan. Oh, thank you. So yeah, I was just responding to a comment. So essentially, just to give you a very brief overview, Ozone looks and feels like it's an object store, but it integrates perfectly into the big data ecosystem. So Yarn, Spark, Hive, all of that work. And both of us are Apache Hadoop committers and PMC members and all that. So we've been working on this for the last 3 years, and a lot of our users and customers are now moving into Kubernetes. We have been playing around with normal installs and lifecycle management, and so we would like to support this formally inside Rook so that the experiences are very consistent with normal storage systems. Okay. So that is briefly what Ozone is. Ozone specifically provides at this point of time Hadoop compatible file system API, which is what all big data applications use. It's not really a file system in this classical POSIX sense, but it is more like a file system interface driver for Hadoop applications. And then it also supports S3 protocol out of the box, just like similar to Ceph, I would say, just enable S3. We intend to support NFS at some point of time. So that is pretty much it. Marthon, you want to add anything?
Don't think so. Yeah, we have also the CSI internal CSR server. As of now, we use Fuse S3 Fuse file system to mount our buckets, but we are also planning to do some native Fuse file system, but it's still in progress.
Philite AI just commented that it'd be very interested in a configuration example for K8s and a Spark operator. We will certainly do that. We in our tree of Apache Ozone, we ship currently with Kubernetes configuration examples and stuff like that. We do not have Spark examples. Marthan, correct me if I'm wrong. But
we have a documentation about Spark example.
Yeah, no, but we don't have the configuration, right? So we can probably check it in examples or something, and
Yeah.
We have it as part of the Ozone code base today. Most of the stuff for the documentation.
So to me, this sounds really cool. Having the ability to easily deploy and manage and scale, et cetera. Do a lot of automation around those operational tasks for Ozone as a storage provider. Sounds really exciting. I think that's great. Right now, when you run in Kubernetes, what are the artifacts that you have that are getting deployed into the Kubernetes cluster? Is it like a stateful set or a deployment and some other daemons, or what does that look like that needs to get put into the Kubernetes cluster to start being functional?
Yeah, so let's start at the top. We have a block manager and a physical layer detection manager called the SCM or storage container manager. Just think of it as a block manager for our system. So basically, and then on top of the storage manager, we have a namespace manager, which we call the Ozone manager. Okay. And then what we have is a bunch of data nodes where we actually store data, and they are stateful sets or persistent volumes and all that. So basically, that is the first layer of the core system. Then we have multiple sidecars, like S3 Gateway comes up as a different service. So there are 4 or 5 these microservices which will come up, many instances of them which will build. And then for CSI, we have another service, so on and so forth. So primarily, there are 2 highly available services. There are 3 instances of Ozone Manager and 3 instances of the SCM. They're replicated via Raft. And then the data nodes run a replication protocol whenever we write data. And then that is pretty much it.
And underneath the Hadoop Ozone, does it use the raw disks to write to its underlying storage, or does it need could it use PVCs underneath it that come from another storage provider, or how does that layer?
We currently use only raw disks directly.
Got it.
But can it work with another storage provider? Maybe. We have never tried it out.
Got it.
I think the whole point is is to use local storage, right? Yeah. Because we can provide the network storage. So I think it's possible, but yeah. So we can use local persistent volumes, for example.
Got it. And what since it the mainline scenario here is to use raw disks. If with this integration effort here, I would love to see that there's a common Rook framework and the Rook set of a set of types and specs and some logic that are common to all the storage providers. And I would love that. Ceph also uses raw disks, and I think it's got some logic that's still in the Ceph code itself around managing some of those raw devices and selecting them and discovering them and all that stuff. I would love to see, the code that is common there or that can help other storage providers. I would love to see that moved into that common area so that, that means less code that you all would have to write. And get the benefit of that logic for the greater community. That would be great to see that.
Yeah, and EdgeFS is also using some of that too. So there's the discovery service that's common to both Ceph and EdgeFS right now. There's more to do there.
In fact, we would love to work on that because that will give us some more understanding of how Rook itself works. We just once we start supporting Rook, we must also
definitely lots of commonality that we should take advantage of. That sounds
we can pull it out and make it a general service, and then probably each provider can use it at a later point. Because I'm not going and touch Ceph, but we can probably create this interface. You guys can give us advice on how it should look like. And then we can probably use first in Ozone, prove that it works, and then other operators can adopt it if it is a generic pattern.
Yeah, that's a very reasonable and safe approach to that. I agree with that. Yeah, this is exciting. I think that the work that you guys have done here so far to write this up and get this initiative spearheaded, I think it is really great too. So I appreciate the work that you all have done here.
I have looked at all the design documents, and Ceph's design documents are outstanding. I must say that whoever wrote it has put in a lot of work, a lot of thought. So thank you for that. But Cassandra's also is very good. So I can actually produce something like that at that level of detail, or I can do something like MinIO or NFS, which is like very high level, and they say, okay, we work kind of thing. What level? Because if I write design documents at the level of Ceph or Cassandra, you need to understand a little bit about Ozone to understand it. So I don't know how much you would like me to expose that. I'm willing to write either way, whatever depth you think you're comfortable with.
I think ultimately, if we can understand how Ozone will integrate with Rook and understand what the operator needs to do, that's the important part.
Okay.
There could be varying levels of diving in that may be useful. It may depend on the operator. I'd say there's no single answer.
Okay, so let me put up some documentation proposals and design docs section, so you guys can probably read it and give me feedback if you need more details. And then we will also post a patch. So we have, Marthon has actually done a preliminary level of patch, which would just enable Ozone under Rook. So we will bring that in once the documents are in place.
Yeah, but this is a very simplified version, so it's similar to the MinIO, actually, which is, I think, also a very simple version of an operator.
Yeah, MinIO and Cockroach are both very simple, simplistic, like initial, very pre-alpha type of implementations. But they serve as a good starting point to figure out, where all the touch points and integration points are for how to integrate with Rook. They serve as good examples for that.
Yeah, if you guys don't mind, I propose that I would also write a getting started Rook plugin document, because we had to look at source. So maybe somewhere in the beginner docs, how to write a plugin based on these examples and where to go look at code. We just did that. So maybe we'll write that up. And if it is something that is interesting, we can contribute that also.
Yeah, great. And one more question. So where are you? It looks like in this this issue you pointed out that you have a POC that you've already created and some things basically working. Can you summarize where that POC or how far you got with that?
Marthon?
The POC of the operator? I think I pushed to, I can share actually the URL on the GitHub. But so what I did, I created a new operator mainly based on the MinIO code. But because we have a lot of Kubernetes resources, I used an approach from the Ceph CSI, where all the base YAML files are loaded and just customized. So not all of the resources are created from code, but I just used templates. And after that, I just tested it, and it could install an Ozone cluster. I think that's so. I would say this is a very skeletal. So I didn't use, for example, this API to check all of the available disks.
Great. Yeah, that sounds great. That was a starting point.
Cool. All right. So it looks like then we'll be on the lookout for a little one-pager design document that kind of overall explains high level what the integration looks like, and what sort of artifacts get created by the operator, maybe what the CRD would look like for what the user would be able to configure and set and stuff like that, just to get an idea of the experience. That high level stuff I think would be a great starting point, and we can add comments there and iterate over it there.
Okay, works very well. We'll do that, and then we can show you the preliminary patch, and then we can start working. I mean, just think of it as a starting point, and then we'll iterate through until whenever is the next.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, getting the starting point where like alpha level implementation is perfectly fine. That sounds great. Yeah, great work, guys. This looks really good.
Thank you. Actually, this is part of the feedback that you asked. We were motivated and were able to do it because we saw you talk in the KubeCon. So the Rook talks were actually pretty useful.
It's awesome. That's great.
Useful for us. Thank you.
Great.
All right. The next item we have the agenda is another storage provider for Nuba. Do we have someone on the call to discuss this as well?
Yes, hi.
Hey there.
Hey, Travis.
Okay.
Hi, guys.
And
I think at least from the point of view of the issue was created some time ago, and probably not enough information there. But the PR I opened it today, so it might be there's a doc, there's an actual doc behind it. If you prefer, I don't know how you use it, but can you view the entire thing? I'm not sure. Yeah, it should work.
Does this help? Is this help here? Is this good?
Yeah, perfect. So can I take 5 minutes and tell you about Nuba? Is that okay?
Yeah, sure. Please do.
Okay. So thanks, guys. I'm excited to do this and get started with Rook here. And I'll give you just a 1 minute history of what got us here, and then I'll tell you what I did and what we plan on doing. Okay. So Nuba was actually a startup. Was always small, always agile, always like a small team doing what we thought was best. And almost 6 months ago, acquired by Red Hat. Just a month before Red Hat acquired Nuba, IBM acquired Red Hat. So that was interesting. That was like confusing. Anyway, so we started off as with a premise of being a flexible data management for object storage. And we did provide like the ability to use also local file systems and other object storage on the cloud, etc. And our idea was always solving the problems of multi-cloud for getting rid of lock-in, like vendor lock-in for the cloud, or hybrid cases, etc. So we never took the approach of being the only storage in the world. We just, we always were aggregating storage. So you'll see that, I guess, in the design, that we have like a backing stores, and we have policies, and we try to make these policies and the experience to using that the major thing about the product. So Nuba itself is it's always been through the development part. It's always been deployed as a VM, and we just like the last 6 months ago, we've been running on Kubernetes and OpenShift as a platform. So that's I won't say it's new for us, because we did see it along the way, but we actually deploying it to Kubernetes is new for us, at least. So it's I think we don't have a lot of components. I can actually point you if you can go through there's an architecture slide here. Can you click that? I hope it will open up okay with the Oh yeah, not that good. Maybe just the raw one. Yeah. Okay, so that's good. I mean I just wanted to just give you a high level view of what it is. So we connect to cloud resources, and we connect to file systems, which we just use as storage, as a backend storage. And we have a brain on the left there. There's a brain. It looks like a brain. So, and the point about the architecture is that we provide like a rich, capable policy engine and metadata server that is capable of doing data placement very flexibly. So you can decide every piece of data, where it should go, put it there. We do dedupe, compression encryption on every piece of data. And the IO path, data path here on the right, does not go through the brain. So it does go through the brain for allocations and instructions, but then the actual data goes directly to the resource itself. So that's the basic thing. Not too many components. The main component is the brain. The other is the top right one, which is the endpoint, providing S3 endpoint for object store access. And the cloud storage is provided externally as an API, and the bottom one is for
Sorry,
files.
just a quick question. Did you say you are not on the data path, or you are on the data path?
No, so the product is on the data path.
Okay.
I was referring specifically for the part that the architecture for the brain specifically is taking the brain aside from, so the data itself does not go through the brain. That's maybe the more accurate thing to say.
Okay. So you have a separate control plane that determines where things go, and then you have a data plane that is actually moving bits.
Yes, exactly.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah, perfect. So just the high-level architecture, and now the plan with Nube is to provision it for environments which have a relation to hybrid and multi-cloud environments. So at first stage, at least in the design doc, I didn't go to that specific deployment just because I actually wanted to, to show you at least what was the first step, and just get a feedback and see how that looks like, and how Rook, how that approach, of deploying Nuba, which I think is less of an effort, like you said before. Like it doesn't need to manage local volumes. It's whenever we take file systems, taking them with a PVC, and when we're taking other object stores, or we can take any key value stores basically. So when we take storage from other APIs, then we just use an API, like a RESTful API, HTTP based, so it's stateless in that sense. And there is another caveat there, or maybe like a capability that we're trying to push, and you guys probably know that, which is the ideas of providing like an object bucket claim analogous to the persistent volume claim, which we at least believe it makes sense. I mean, we're not saying it's the only way. We also like provide the provisioning using S3, AWS S3, create bucket, whatever the case is. So that's the basic thing.
Sorry, do you have the provisioning work done in your approach here for S3 and Google Storage and Azure Blob Store?
Yeah.
Or a bucket plane? Where is?
Okay.
Is
so
that in? Yeah.
I'll try to answer that. So there's a few things here in the design doc. There's the backing stores and there's the bucket provisioner, exactly. So the bucket provisioning is describing the general approach of how Nuba itself is answering object bucket claims. Okay, that's like the front end to provide bucket claims to applications. So that's the frontline path for object bucket claim. On the backing storage piece, I can take you back maybe to the yeah. So there's the backing stores here. Yeah. So basically, there's options here. Maybe I should have pasted some more example here. There's the CRD example. If you can open that from the front page as well of the design. The first one, number one, the system CRD. Thanks. I can drive as well if that's annoying. Thanks.
No problem.
Okay, so if you drill a little bit to the full spec example, you see that? Right. So you can see here the backing store piece here, like the object in the spec. So there's multiple ways of defining how do we connect, right? So those are just the native ones. So if I have AWS S3 and I want to connect to it, I can just provide like a bucket name and region and credentials. secret. That's like the native way of saying to where I should connect to, and then Nuba connects to it without a problem. And the other option, if you drill a little bit down below, or maybe just cover the rest. So there's like S3 compatible, there's Google, there's Azure Blob. So all of these are just supported by the product once there's the credentials for that. The new thing, maybe, yeah.
Just a question on that. So are you acting as a gateway in these scenarios? You're actually on the data plane, at the data plane level, proxying calls to S3 and Google and Azure?
We're not proxying the API calls as like one-to-one. The point that we were making, so we have like, okay, let me slow down. We have multiple ways of operation, and the idea is to provide a flexible solution. The native way of, or maybe the normal way that we operate is that once a Nuba bucket gets an upload or a read, whatever the operation is for object, we don't just redirect the thing to another object store. We ingest that in our endpoint, and we do dedupe, variable length dedupe for that. We cut it to chunks. We compress, encrypt, get a checksums and everything else on like a metadata of that chunk, and then we store chunks, encrypted chunks on storage, on backing stores. And the idea was to provide a means of separating encryption keys from data, providing efficiency with compression, compression dedupe, etc.
So I guess I'm trying to reconcile what you said about provisioning and the claim discussion, and what you're discussing now, which is, sounds like Nuba has a notion of backing stores itself.
Yes.
That you use for the actual storage in whatever format you're setting, after encryption and ingestion happens and all of that stuff, you can use other backing stores and you can configure them. But you also talked about having a bucket CRD, that's a claim, and being able to bind that to different backing stores. Those seem like different things to me. Could you maybe just address that?
Yes. So let me say this. The core capability of the product is to connect to all the provided storage, right? That's what we're trying to do, to create policies between them, whether it's tiering, whether it's mirroring, and make it location aware, etc. So just creating a multi-cloud, a hybrid cloud environment which works with these policies. Okay, so that's like the basic thing. You can configure such a solution without bucket claims. You can configure it just by saying, here's a bucket, there's the credentials, here's another bucket, there's the credentials, just work it out. And that's how Nuba was always being deployed and working. And we have a UI that can provision, so it can help to set up everything. I even pasted like few 2 YouTube videos, I think, that you can see it if you want on the main design. So it's fully capable of doing that without any bucket provisioning. However, the reason why we think bucket provisioning adds to the total solution is that that in essence inside Kubernetes there is no representation of these operations of getting a bucket to provision it. So it's like you have an application, it wants to use a bucket. What do? You go to the object store, you provision it, you create a bucket in its UI, and then you take the credentials and you go to the application configuration and you put it there, right? So it's like, it's always
I'm a big fan of bucket provisioning. I totally understand it. I guess my question was, I think the thing I was trying to kind of discern here is that
the relation to backing stores.
Yes, if there was a bucket claim, let's just say a concept of a bucket claim, will there be a Nuba bucket that binds to that claim, or will it be a Google, Amazon, and all the different flavors of buckets that also bind to that claim.
Yeah, so we propose both. We believe,
Okay.
I mean, at least from our point of view, there's no point in saying just, either one makes sense and the other one doesn't. So
Yeah.
if like you have an application and the application should work in that environment of a multi-cluster hybrid cloud, then it makes sense to connect to the bucket, to the Nuba bucket with that claim. And for provisioning, like for easier provisioning of Nuba itself with the backing stores, I think the bucket claims for the backing stores also make sense. So, I mean, I don't think it's a must-have, but I think it adds to the solution. So.
Understood. So, in the case that you provision in Nuba, bucket, you're actually intermediating calls and doing the data plane, and the ingestion, potentially sharding, everything you need to do across your backing stores. And in the case that you provision in S3 bucket directly, you're talking directly to S3. There's nothing in between.
Yeah, so when we are provisioning an S3 bucket from AWS, for example.
No, I'm saying if the user is.
If the user is doing, yes. So we're not in the path, at least.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean.
That helps. I think I understand this. Is your proposal, sorry, I've not had a chance to look at it yet, but is your proposal here both for running Nuba as part of the Rook framework on Kubernetes, and also the notion of claims and provisioning and buckets, all of that are both in the same design, or are they?
Yes,
okay.
I did. I included them together. I mean, I don't see. Well, at least I didn't see any conflict between them. I think they add to each other. So.
Okay. Cool.
I had two questions about Nuba. Number one is that you said you will maintain encryption and all that. So is there where is your metadata stored? Is that metadata server is going to run, the Nuba core is going to run on a VM? Is it replicated? What happens if I lose that core?
So that it runs in Kubernetes. It runs as a stateful set with the PV. So it's assumed to have persistency, at least for the storage piece of it. So like any database, sorry?
I can lose a physical node, and suppose I write a file, and if I lost your Nuba core physical node, how do I get my data back?
Okay, so there's two pieces here. One piece is what we're suggesting to do in the short term, and the other is in the longer term. So I'll tell you, in the short term, the thing is that once we move to Kubernetes, we sort of put aside our HA clustering solution, which was based on VMs, and we had to put it aside for just a few releases because it wasn't it was holding us back. So for the time being, we are relying on PVs, which can provide HA. Okay, for that solution to work, right? So for example, Ceph RBD can provide that in cluster sense.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay, and going forward, just to give you a sense of what we're planning on doing, so we will reintroduce that clustering mechanism, and I think the reason is mostly to provide a geo cluster, like a multi-cluster solution, rather than just like in inter-cluster HA solution.
And when I make a request, my second question is that when I make a request, you said you will take my request, you will chunk it and write to the right location. How do you scale?
Yes.
So does the Nuba core, am I making a request to a Nuba core and there is a Nuba core on every data node, or like suppose I have a 100 node cluster, and this cluster I have 100 or 2000 containers trying to make requests to the Nuba core. One machine will soon run out of the bandwidth and chunking. So how do you guys scale at all? Okay,
so there's different roles in that in the architecture. So the role of the top piece connecting to the application, which is our endpoint, is responsible for doing all the CPU heavy, network heavy operation, right? So chunking, encryption, all of these processing, stream processing that occurs to the data runs in that endpoint. And that endpoint is a stateless component. So it can be scaled horizontally with any of the horizontal scaling tools. The only thing that does limit the ability to scale up, but it doesn't limit it forever, is the calls that these endpoints are doing to the brain. And these calls are essentially very limited, both in size and in the effort that needs to be doing to process them. They are calls like allocate, give me an allocation. Where should I put this data and that data? Or persist this metadata for me, etc. So it's like a database, and it will scale like a database, right? And we are using MongoDB internally for these matter, and MongoDB, it provides scalability for these sort of workloads. And therefore we have the pieces for scalable architecture in that sense. Does that work for you? Does it make sense?
No, of course it works for me. I'm just curious. I'm like, what happens because, as I said, I work on Ozone. So for me, you'll be a layer which works on top of me. Like I'm already S3 compliant, so I can actually plug into Nuba directly. So that's why I was like, curious on how these things work.
Okay, yeah.
So
I mean, does it work for you like as a review anyway?
Yeah, so this sounds good. This is also really exciting as well. Both Nuba and also Ozone today. So the Nuba design pull request is already open now. So let's follow up on there because we only have about 5 minutes left in the call. We still have some other agenda items to get through, but definitely thank you very much for showing this work off today and getting that pull request open, and we can continue the discussion there.
Great work, guys. This is fantastic.
Thank you, guys, and keep me posted on anything. I'm here all the time. Okay.
Very cool. Very cool.
Thanks.
Travis, I think we identified that we need to update the roadmap, but if you could probably go off and do that
that's
external to this meeting. Okay.
Yep.
All right. You want to move to the next topic?
Yeah, for the CI, just pointing out that there's work in progress to move the CI to an account where more contributors can have access. So thanks to Chris from Upbound and others working on that. I know it's in progress. There's some DNS issues to resolve to finalize that, but and part of that then hopefully after migrated we can get more build agents. That's kind of the biggest pain point right now around the CI. Besides some stability issues, but anyway, it's in progress and we're paying attention to it. So,
Travis, are you updated now on like getting you access to the AWS account and all of that stuff?
so I haven't heard from Chris since Friday, I think, when there was.
I think he's waiting on like some DNS change from the Linux Foundation.
Yeah.
Because we have to rewrite DNS, but the idea is to give you and access to the AWS account that we're using to host all of this.
Yeah,
so
I appreciate it. Thanks. Yeah. Hopefully they get back to us soon, and then it sounds like it's a pretty quick thing to finish off that migration. And yeah, that's good for CI for now. The next point I wanted to bring up is, as a follow-up to KubeCon, some discussions we had there. I am working on sort of the Rook charter doc that says, hey, here's where we want Rook to go. Here's how we support storage providers coming into the Rook community. There's kind of lots of thoughts around what does the Rook framework look like? What does that look like? So the goal being, well, whatever is common between the storage providers, definitely want to be clear about how storage providers can benefit from that commonality, have common libraries to help with that. We talked about some of that already around earlier in this meeting. While also the goal is to give independence to each storage provider in multiple ways. So I think storage providers in general would be interested in defining their own release schedule, running independent integration, tests and CI, having control over pushing to the repo, and some of that is in Jared's governance update today too. excuse me. But anyway, it's all in progress. If you have thoughts around that, I guess we'll have to follow up outside of this meeting, and I'll hopefully send out.
Do you have a working Google Doc for this, Travis, or is it still kind of early?
Yeah, so it's still early. I haven't sent it out broadly, but I think by end of day today, I'll plan on sending that out to a broader group. And yeah, so if I don't send it to you by end of day, send me a reminder, and those that give me an email address, I can send it to you.
Great.
All right, sounds good. And so then building on that too, over the weekend, they opened up a pull request that updates the governance with a new change approval process that would allow, that enables two new, like a reviewer and approvers type of roles for the project. So currently only the maintainer team can approve and merge pull requests, but we'll be expanding that to more contributors, excuse me, in the community, so that each storage provider can have autonomous independence to be able to work on their code areas and unblock that and improve their velocity. So this was a long time coming, and it is published now, and Travis has provided some feedback. Alexander, if you have any feedback as well, please add that, and Bassam as well, and we'll continue to drive that.
Thanks for putting this together, Jared. So we'll go through the feedback this week, hopefully, and merge it.
Yep, sounds good. And Travis, last item here.
Yeah, just a small PR. So today, when we publish the Docker images, and we use channels, release channel, master channel, the Docker Hub, there's a Docker Hub tag used for each channel. And my question is if anyone is using the release channel tag. So that PR specifically has some discussion in it around, what to do around channels and this tag specifically, because then it comes with upgrade implications. People are using it where you don't know exactly what, or the operator won't know exactly what image it's using potentially if someone gives it that tag. So I don't know that we have time to discuss it here really, but if we could follow up on that, that'd be great if people have comments on it. Yeah.
Did that pull request leave off like at a stalemate, or was there a consensus, or?
Oh, so far it's a discussion between Bassam and I think there's some different perspectives between us. So maybe I'd love to have other input from community members if there is any, but if not, I'll continue with Bassam.
All right, sounds good. That was the last item on the agenda. Did anybody else want to bring up something right at the end here that they want to discuss? Okay, so we are just about out of time here, and thank you everyone for attending and discussing the new potential storage providers in Rook. I think that's very exciting work. I'd love to see more additions to the Rook project and more contributors and to keep this community growing. So this is all great stuff, and thank you very much everybody today.
Thank you for having us here. Bye-bye.
Yeah, thanks everyone.
Thank you.